So I'll read a few poems from Real Daughter, and then I might read another one, see how the time is going. Okay, I'll start with one called Still with My Mother. A doe gave birth in the yard below. So still with my mother at the window, I spoke low of what we both could see. Look, look. From holding myself motionless, an ache came up my legs and back. Was it so long? My mother nudged, the mother nudged and nursed the just born fawn, and then ignored it, turned away and strained until a second tumbled to the ground. She licked it clean. Then both came to her sides, and when she walked, they followed her to nearby woods. How thin, how fine the fawns and their mother. They all knew what to do, and have I ever? I too have been thinking about living close and long term with just a couple people and what that's like and what it's going to look like when it's all over, like emerging from our, our reclusiveness. I mean, some of you are working out already because you've got essential jobs. I work from home already as a copy editor, so for me it's just having more people at home all the time. But anyway, I think about the what it'll be like. This poem is called Dry Dock. I wrote it from a picture prompt. I went to a writing thing in North Carolina, and I was handed a picture of a ship in a bottle. I said, write a poem. Okay. Dry Dock. After the shakes were over, he built ships in the best of the empty bottles. She didn't mind the first few. Admiring people said, how did he ever? She'd say with a chopstick and a very long tweezer. But the growing fleet went nowhere. Masts and rigging like bird bones, but safe in there. The sails wouldn't really billow, even if she uncorked a bottle and blew in it. Next to invisible dots of glue held everything she thought about the inaccessible, places they used to go, what it would take to get in or out, and whether she would want to. I'm going to read another poem that began with a prompt, and that is, I was supposed to write a poem with the title of a book that I hadn't read. And so I chose a book I saw on my grandparents' shelf called What Happens When Women Pray. And I'm thinking, I guess, about, the sticky situation of like when, I don't know, when people's prayers aren't answered, and that is happening now. When a relative, a loved one, comes down with a virus, and especially if they've got a lot of risk factors. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are praying for them, and sometimes those prayers aren't answered affirmatively. What happens when women pray? This has an epigraph. Please indicate the reason for your return. It didn't fit. It's not what I ordered. It came too late. Rain falls or doesn't. The phone rings or is silent. Momentary hope is momentarily calming, even if the baby won't be soothed. And prayer is credited when the breathing improves, when the biopsy is negative. Otherwise, cancer as enlightenment, death as mercy, bargaining, doubt. Does God even like you? About backseat driving, the driver can ignore you, take the turns too fast, leave the main highway for some desolate potholed road. Maybe you'll get home, Maybe your children will arrive safely. And I'll go from there to another poem. It's called After the Flood. Uh, Patty, you were talking about how the animals are just going along their merry way, or nature's going on. And this poem, it's reminded me of this poem. After the Flood. Among the mud-bloated cattle, among the fattened crows discussing the landscape, what will fill our mouths besides our bitter tongues? Bowls of foul air? Should we not have prayed for rain? Warped doors give way to rubbled rooms. Where windows were, stained curtains luff lakeward. Let us kneel to consider the limits of algorithms and whether God is good. Surely we believed our prayers are sifted, that right requests would settle on God's ear like specks of gold in a miner's pan, all worthless bits washed out. No doubt the sun was wanted elsewhere. Maybe there's a balance to maintain, a seesaw system of losses and gains. Of course, a crow is laughing in the sycamores. It doesn't care the foliage droops all sodden and forgetful. And look at the ants, the competing spiders, all the beetles still clinging to the bark. You miss some stuff? I miss some stuff. I miss some people too. I'm going to read a poem called That Jettison Tactic. You know that jettison tactic? That dropping of pots and pans you decide after all to do without? That shedding of the heavy coat, lightening yourself and your load, because who knew the road would be this rough, your body this tired? There are people I would leave behind, their care too much to carry. But now, cold, I want my coat. Hungry, I need my pots and pans. So I'm living at home with my husband and one of my kids. And I'll read a poem about both. This is, one poem for each. Life still with daughter. Whom I love, ally and antagonist, who likewise loathes sexism, who loves me, who laughs at my ignorance, who sings with me, who goes silent, who remembers my past and present sins, who points out everything I lack, my categories out of date, who sees woman as a small box and refuses to get in. I stretch large to show there is room, but bruise my head. Who then kisses it, holds my hand, tisk-tisks. Who will not make the bed? Who needs a friend but gets a mother? Who needs a mother but a better who needs a mother but a better one? Who demands I expand my heart, and I do. Who wants more than that? My mind synced completely, available with no hovering. Who is afraid? Who lives with pain and persists? Who would rather not? Who needs money? Who loves beauty and points out small wonders? Fledgling owl in undergrowth, click of gravel under the foot of a snail. Thanks, everyone. Yoked, for Paul. How is a yoke born? The ox and the ox. The farmer goads the one, and it walks, so both walk. The farmer taps the other, and it turns, so both turn. They can't turn away from each other. A husband and wife feel their marriage chafe, always the other, often not what they'd rather, the room too hot and too cold, the calendar cluttered, not right now, the calendar cluttered, the accounts scrutinized, insufficient. Each body grows old. In the distance, other possible selves, places they might have gone if. Behind the oxen, the earth opens and turns like fresh sheets turned back on the bed. They face only the hard ground ahead, yet they feel the resistance give. Imagine a crop there, thriving in perfect weather. It might or might not turn out like that. There are all kinds of disasters. And the wife and the husband can turn away from each other. This yoke is not a wooden thing. Or they can turn toward each other and cling, as they do some nights when they're not too tired, to the solace of familiar skin. Your eyes, she might say again, are like Picasso eyes when we're this close, overlapping almond shapes, one slightly over the other. And he might again say, "You are a strange thing," and stay there, his forehead touching hers. Thank you. It is very strange reading to silence, even in a room, you know, when you're just, when people aren't saying anything, there's still, I don't know, you still hear little noises. I can see your hands, I can see your smiles, and that's nice. I'll read a poem that I don't normally read at a reading, and I guess I want to read it because it takes me some places in my imagination. I find I've been using my imagination a lot, remembering places that I would go if I could. This is called Instructions in Case of Interruptive Insomnia. I hope it does not put you to sleep. Here we go. Brown leather purses, carports you have known, garages if you've never seen a carport, children's books. No, scratch that one. Hardware stores will do. Or flowers, feathers. No, the small gray feathers stuck to the window this morning. You don't want dead birds in your bed at 2 a.m. when you toss and fret about your son, your daughter, your diminishing mother and father. Think instead of brown purses, the tooled Mexican handbags for sale at the state fair, the flowers and birds in bas relief. Oh, birds again. Think. The soft suede bags with fringes, the purse your aunt let you rummage through during church, the Gumby keychain, the tiny address book, the compact of pressed powder with its dusty mirror. And if that brings your mother to line, just skip that. Go on to the wallet with its various pockets, the envelope pocket for dollar bills, the accordion pocket for change, its two-pronged metal clasp, the slight resistance, the scrape, one part pushing past the other, and under the snap, the picture sleeves. Or next on the list, carports, garages. Unless you find them too cluttered or dirty, you can always move on. Grocery stores, gas stations, the corner hardware. Yes, you could go through the nail bins, common nails, box nails, finishing nails, double-headed scaffold nails, roofing nails, their large flat heads galvanized rough. Let their sharp points soothe you. If you need to go to the next aisle, examine the paint brushes, finger their handles, press the bristles against your palm, pick a soft one, the softest, so slowly brush it over your face, your eyelids. All right. Well, since I've got some family members, thank you. Here, I'm going to read a poem that does have some family history to it. I was thinking with the pandemic, and especially reading about the Spanish flu, the 1918, 1919 influenza pandemic. I was thinking about how vulnerable we are, and how I might not be here if the wrong person died, if the right person died, and so on. So I thought I'd read this one. It's called "After Sex, I Fetch My Calculator." After sex, I fetch my calculator. I multiply myself times 2, back through time, 10 times times 2 when 1,024 babies were born who have something to do with the making of me. Back times 2. There are 2,048 parents, 4,096 grandparents, 8,192 great-grandparents, 16,384 great-great-grandparents. You get the idea. A lot of thrusting, a lot of spread legs. Oh, production. Months of stretched bellies, full breasts, long skirts let out, pleated smocks, voluminous jumpers. So much labor went into the making of me. The hours and hours of all of those births, the work to keep those children breathing, the plowing, the planting, sawing, hammering, sewing, cooking, laundering, milking, painting, teaching, welding, weaving. So much food has been hunted or raised or traded for. So much bought from the grocery store. Tons of potatoes, grains and greens, eggs and milk, fish and meat. So much slaughter in the making of me. And so many prayers of one sort or another for crops to grow and cows to calve, for customers, the paying kind, for bones and wounds and hearts to heal, for fevers to break, wars to end. Miles have gone into the making of me, by foot, horse, boat, bike, to France to find work and back again, ships to America, airplane across it, and cars polished and photographed, chins up, chests out, tractors, cattle trucks, milk trucks, pickup trucks, the rumbling green GMC flatbed that hauled fixtures to the galvanizers, and a small boat to Lake Kapowsin. And shelters on man-made mounds in ancient Friesland, long houses of birch trunks, reeds, grass, and mud, then long houses of brick and tile with bed cupboards, cows sleeping on the other side of the wall. My mother remembers this. Her first months in America, a cousin's front porch, then a bungalow under California palms, while my father grew on a Minnesota farm, newlyweds in a camper with chrome trim. Beauty, too, went into the making of me, beds of geraniums edged with white stones, white crocheted bedspreads, dresses sewn and trimmed with buttons, lace, a silver pin, rugs woven on a wooden loom, my mother and father singing. I don't know how long I've been reading. I meant to look at the clock when I started and I forgot. Erica, can you tell me, am I done?
You are not done, Lynn. You have been reading for about 15-ish minutes. Does that sound right, Joan?
Yeah,
so you have
5:34. We can go until 6, so she can.
Does anyone have a request of a poem they want me to read, or does anyone have a question?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll read just a few more poems then. I'll read the first poem in the book. Is called Marcescens. It's an arboreal term. It's a word that has to do with trees. And I noticed when I was in North Carolina for a year, I noticed trees, beech trees that did not drop their leaves during the winter. And I looked it up and I found out there's a word for that called marcescens. And I thought, oh, I have to write a poem using this word. So cool. And then the next day I was reading an interview of a Lit Mag editor, and he was talking about going through the slush pile of submissions and coming across another stupid tree poem. And I thought, oh, I write tree poems quite a bit. I can't write another tree poem now. You know, I was just like mortified. And I thought, dang it, I'm writing this poem. So I did. Here we go. Marcescens. The beech's light brown leaves in horizontal layers, like my mother's tiered serving trays artfully placed in the winter forest. And here we are in another stupid tree poem, this one about the difficulty of letting go of something already dead. Such a fancy word for it when it comes to trees. Marcescence. You could name a daughter that. Unlike fury, unlike grief. Like the beeches, I'm slow to harden my cells, allow abscission, another elegant arboreal term, those tidy partings between twig and withered leaf, or the calm release of ripe fruit. Consider the clean white spaces between each layer of a family tree. It isn't like that at all. And I'll read one more. Just give me 1 second to find it. It's called Extracurricular, and it's about the things I learned from my mother. You know how pages can stick between your, there it is, page 46, stick in your fingers. Here we go, extracurricular. Thanks everyone for coming and for listening. It's been nice to hear the other two poets and nice to see your attentive faces. Thanks for keeping us poets going during our stay home time. Extracurricular. Beyond caution, hard work, seemliness, and thrift, my mother taught me forsythia and what it meant, and that green was not one color. She showed me signs to look for, new leaves like tiny flames, and bright bursts at conifer tips. I learned the fairy tale names of ferns, and that a leaf showing its silver is waiting for the wind's promised shower. She paused and made me pause for what she called the gilded hour, when the sun sinks low enough to shine below the long gray skies and make every color warm. From her, I learned the galvanic smell of rain and the earth after a rain, to break open a freshly picked bell pepper and inhale something similar, to notice the dank odor of a cold tree and its different scent when hot. She listened and helped me listen to pine cones ticking open, to the forest's summer breathing, its rattling in fall, and the various calls of all its transitory residents. Thank you.